Good evening. We'll call to order the Monday, September 27th meeting of the Corte Madera Parks and Recreation Commission. Rebecca, will you please do roll call?
Thank you. Commissioner Charlie?
Here.
Commissioner Elson?
Here.
Commissioner Koenig?
Here.
Commissioner Miles?
Here.
Commissioner Phipps?
Here.
Commissioner McPherson?
Here.
Co-Chair Brown?
Here.
And Co-Chair Janowski?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Before we start with those items on the agenda, I wanted to first say welcome back to our Parks and Recreation Director, Ashley Howe. We've missed you while you've been on maternity leave. You left us in great hands with Rochelle, but we're really happy to see you back.
Thank you. It's nice
We'll
to be
start
back.
with, yeah. And before we get into the items on the agenda, we'll start with open time for public comment. Reminder that this is time for public to comment on items that are not on our agenda. Members of the public will be given 3 minutes apiece and can either raise a hand here in the Zoom or email comments to publiccomments@tcmmail.org. Rebecca, do we have any raised hands?
Thank you. I'm not seeing any raised hands, and we did not receive any. Oh, we have a raised. Oh, that's actually your hand.
Oh, I just did that by accident. How about that?
Okay, so I'm not seeing any raised hands from attendees, and there are. We did not receive any email with public comments for open time.
Okay, great. Then we'll close public comments at this time and we'll move into our agenda. And the first item on our agenda is presentations. And we have an update from Shanat Rodriguez on Summer Camp 2021. Welcome, Shanat.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to be back. I can't believe summer's over and fall's here and school started and everything's happening. But I am very excited to give you guys an update. So let me go ahead and pull up. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. My share screen. Sorry, give me 1 second. I don't know why it's not.
While Shanat's loading that, I'll just say that Shanat's had another great year with us, and we really appreciate all the effort that she put in all summer and all year. This was the last year and a half plus that she never got a break. Normally she comes to us every summer and does summer camp and a little bit of pre and post planning. But this year, you know, with the pandemic, she's been going nonstop. So thank you for all of your effort. And we're so excited that she's going to be going to actually get to go live at school. So she's going to be going down to Santa Cruz. So go ahead, Shanat.
Thank you, Ashley. So yes, I'm ready to give you guys a recap here today at the commission meeting. So just some of this will look a little bit familiar from my last presentation, but just reemphasizing and reminding everyone that we're here to help support our community. You know, this version of the summer program was launched back in 2020 due to the pandemic, and it has changed a lot as we update and, you know, try to keep up with everything. It definitely was a completely different program than what we offered last year, and I'm sure it'll continue to evolve as the years come. So just a quick overview of our program. This year, it was located at Neil Cummins again, but it was located at the Portables that used to be the Twin Cities. We did 4 different 2-week sessions. So each session was broken down into 2 weeks, and there was 4 of them. And we did we worked from 8:30 to 5:30, which allowed flexibility for a lot of our parents. A lot of them were very long, hard workers. So I think that those hours were really beneficial for our community. This year, we did a lot more activities, which was wonderful, super fun. We did a lot more theme days, special events. Our daily activities were, I think, just more fun than we were able to do last year. We did a lot of baking. We did engineering. We did a little bit of science. Our special events were able to happen under the, the new regulations. We were able to do a Spy Academy, which was super, super cool. It was my first year doing it. We did Harry Potter, which was always been a camp favorite for staff and for kids. And I think this year was definitely one of my favorite ones. Did Penny Carnival. That's how we finished off our summer, and our birthday celebration. So we celebrated all of the summer birthdays, which was super fun. So this year we had a total of 135 participants, which in comparison to 2020 is almost 8 times as much as that. So we definitely grew. We had a few returning families. We even had some families that returned from prior years, from summer playground years. Most often than not, everyone was just super happy that we were putting something together, that we were able to bring, hours of fun to the campers' days. And out of our participants, 6 of them were scholarship participants. We did have a large request form for scholarship participants, or like a waiting list, but I think that parents just were struggling to commit to our program. So that's how the number might look a little bit different than what I presented last meeting. And in total, we gained $59,604 in participant revenue, which is super cool. I'm very happy with the number. And yeah, I'm feeling really good about that. So here's a little quick glimpse of what we did. Our campers this year were just great. I think I found myself learning a lot from them. Getting to know them was wonderful. The staff were wonderful. So everything was really, really smooth, really fun, and lighthearted. And with that, I would like to take a moment to thank you guys for 8 years of wonderful, wonderful fun. As you guys know, I actually went to summer playground when I was little. I started my first job was at summer playground. I went through Kids Club with Christina, and it was a tough decision, but I think ultimately this is probably the end for me here, at least at Parks and Rec. But it was 8 years of so much warmth and laughter and memories, and I'm very grateful for everything that I learned, all the time I spent giving back to my community and to the community that I grew up in. So yeah, thank you. I'm sure this program will just continue to go up from here.
Thank you so much, Shanat. I'm sure I speak for everybody when I say that your dedication to this program has left a real print on and set a high bar for future. You've just done an amazing job with motivating the staff and keeping the kids engaged. It's really been a bright spot for the community, especially during these last couple of years. So thank you.
Thank you.
I want to open it up and see if there are any questions from the commission before we go to public comment.
I just have one. Shanat, I wanted to echo that. Thank you. You've always, you've been so enthusiastic and have done such a good job. I wonder on the 60,000 of revenue, like I'm sure you had a lot of additional expenses because of COVID, but I'm wondering, how did you feel about like your actual earnings or what, your revenue versus your expenses this summer?
It's really tough. It definitely wasn't the goal we didn't meet the goal that I had initially wanted, but we have to take a lot of things into consideration. Our staff to kids ratio, it's really, 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 really hard to run a summer camp with very limited staffing, just because, kids are trying to go to different places. So we reduced our staff actually quite a lot. We let a lot of staff members go. And even then our staff cost, overshadowed some of our participant revenue. I don't know if Ashley maybe wants to jump in and say anything else. I'm trying to think also just, extra cost to bring the fun. It's all about a balance. I did my best to keep costs as low as possible. But I know that a lot of the reviews that I was hearing actually from kids themselves was, a lot of repetitiveness from years past in activities. So I did my best to balance a little bit and still bring good summer fun. So the special events, we did a lot of our shopping from, the Dollar Tree. That's almost everywhere that we went. And I limited the shopping from like bigger places to things that I just really, really needed. But that's what we did. And we reduced our snack. Well, we also provided snack this year, which was different. So we provided snack, and that took a little bit more than what we had budgeted out originally, because that was a suggestion from Rochelle at the beginning of the summer.
But please don't touch the stop recording button. Okay, continue, please.
What I was going to say is I just wanted to interject with all the services that we were doing for the community, especially for families with the childcare and summer camp. Really, our direction to staff was to provide the service to the community in order to get our families back into their workforces and their regular flow of things. And summer is so important to all of our kids and ultimately the happiness of our community and our families, that I really wanted Shanat to focus on the quality rather than focusing on the bottom line for this year.
That makes sense. I can totally understand that.
Are there any other questions from commissioners? Rebecca, do we have any comments from the public through the raising of hands or public comment at tcmmail.org?
I will give attendees a moment to raise hands. And in refreshing the inbox, we did not receive any emailed public comments on this presentation. And I'm not seeing any raised hands from attendees.
Okay, then I would just bring it back to the commission if anybody has any other comments that they would like to share with Shanat on this program. Well, I think I probably speak for everybody when I say thank you. Thank you so much for everything that you've brought to the program, your passion. It obviously comes from experience and a really deep-seated desire to bring joy to children's lives, and you've done that, and it's been an incredible past couple of years, but the 8 years that you've spent here have made a really extraordinary difference. So good luck with what's next for you, and thank you for setting the bar as high as you did.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate the opportunity to have been able to work, in my community, in a place that I grew up, at a school that I grew up in, and with people that I grew up with. So it's wonderful. Thank you so much, the commission, and I wish you guys all the best in the years to come.
Thanks, Shanat. Okay, with that, the next item on our agenda is the consent calendar. We only have one item on the consent calendar this month, and that's the approval of the draft minutes from our July 12th, 2021 commission meeting. So before we ask for a motion on that, are there any comments or questions on that particular draft of the minutes? Any corrections or things that commissioners would like to clarify? If not, we'll open it up to a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Great. Rebecca, can we do a vote, please?
Commissioner Charlie,
Abstain.
Commissioner Elson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kennick,
Yes.
Commissioner Miles,
Yes.
Commissioner Phipps,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Co-Chair Brown,
Yes.
and Chair Janowski.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. That brings us to item number 5, which are business items. We have 2 tonight. The first one is a preliminary review and possible direction to staff regarding potential revisions to the current Parks and Recreation fee schedule. There was an attachment to the agenda with a staff report, and I'll turn this over to Director Howe to give us a little bit more detail on this item.
Thank you, Co-Chair Brown. First off, I wanted to say that this is a preliminary view and possible direction to staff regarding potential revisions to the current Parks and Recreation master fee schedule. This is really looking for a discussion, and recommended adjustments will be brought back to the commission at a later date for full analysis, review, and possible recommendation to Town Council for adoption of a resolution formalizing the recommended fee schedule. And typically, the commission reviews the fee schedule once a year, usually in late winter, with the intention of recommending the new fee schedule be adopted by Town Council in January with an effective date of July 1st for the fiscal year. And last year for 2020, we did not make any recommended changes. We thought that we were in the middle of the pandemic and we didn't want to go there. So the last fee revision was 2019. And that information is attached. We did have an amendment this year when we added the after-school childcare fees. So discussion is the commission may review and discuss all components of the current fee schedule and provide input and direction to staff regarding items that could potentially be increased or decreased, added or removed, or areas for which they would like to have additional information or comparative analysis performed. And those areas, we have section 3 of the resolution states the fees are charges applicable to the users of the town's recreation facilities and programs are outlined in the Town of Corte Madera Parks and Recreation Master Fee Schedule. And the areas are indoor facilities, digital marquee, Cummins Gym, outdoor facilities, programs, and permit fees. So I think maybe it's the easiest to guide the conversation and discussion through each of the sections if the commission wishes to do so. All right, so we'll begin with indoor facility fees. So first off, the Corte Madera Community Center. So Corte Madera and Larkspur residents are currently charged $2.15 per hour and non-residents are charged $2.75 per hour. And in 2019, the reduced fee was added for a neighborhood response group to use the facilities for meetings at a charge of 50% off of that resident rate. And this rate was increased by $40 per year for each category in 2019, which still seems to be adequate for the space provided. Staff would recommend that the facility attendant fee be added to this fee schedule and added to all rentals to account for staff time to set up and break down equipment and secure the facility. And to talk a little bit more about that is that typically industry standards kind of is conflicted. Most industries, most community centers in our industry and facilities that rent large rooms like our hall, they actually have the renter provide all of their own setup, breakdown, and cleanup. And really, there's a facility attendant that's just there to, for lack of a better term, babysit the facility, protect it, answer any general logistics questions, make sure they have access to things that they need to, and be there in case something needs to be troubleshot. But we have been providing our community a service of setting up all of the tables and chairs and following a setup plan that is provided to us by the renter. And in order to be able to do this, we really need to be able to offset that cost of our staff being there. And this is also having a dedicated staff member. So not your typical front desk or me setting up all of these tables and chairs, but somebody that's really the right person and then the right physique to be doing this and really in the right job classification to be doing this, because that'll reduce ultimately and prevent any injuries to our staff and injuries to any of our participants or renters setting up those equipment. So that's why it's really important to us to recoup that fee. So that's a little bit of background on that. And then, for example, in one fee resolution from the early 2000s, undetermined number of years ago, jumped the line there, additional fees was added, which was an $85 flat rate for a building attendant. So we had this fee essentially in the fee schedule, but we really wanted to revisit that and have the commission's direction of whether that should be put back in at this time in a formalized manner. And this line item also may have been entered as minimum deposit and may be refunded. And this fee has since been removed to be added as a fee under each of the indoor and outdoor facility rentals. It's noted that the fee was $300 in 2001 and is still listed as $300 in the most recent fee schedule. And really looking at all of our deposit costs, whether we should have direction from the commission to really benchmark what our indoor and outdoor facility deposits are, so that in case something happens that we are able to make the proper recoup the expenses in order to make the repairs needed in case something is damaged or needs to be replaced. So discussion on indoor facilities.
Yeah, so just a question on process. I think because this is such a meaty agenda item, I think that the recommendation is that we talk about each of these sections separately, which would mean commissioner questions, public comments or questions, and then back to the commission for discussion. Is that the appropriate protocol here, Rebecca?
That really is up to the co-chairs and how you want to moderate this discussion. This really hasn't been looked at line item by line item in quite a while. So that's why we wanted to bring the whole package to you to get direction on. So if it makes sense to take it section by section and take comments and then keep everyone focused on individual items, then that makes sense to me.
I'll
Okay.
make the suggestion that I go through each of the sections like that. And if the commissioners have notes that they want to write down, and then we can go back so that we're not taking as much time on each section. With that, if that pleases the commission.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Moving into the digital marquee, which is our digital reader board, we call it the reader board out front of the community center. There's a general use of fee for $25 per message and $130 per message for commercial use. But there's some confusion in recent years about whether we're able to have commercial use or not. And when staff was reviewing past meeting minutes from the Planning Commission, it didn't look like the Planning Commission weighed in on that. And it's up to the commission to whether they want to make a recommendation to either allow or not allow commercial use. And then if so, then we would have to really define the commercial use that would be accepted.
Can we comment on that now, or are we going to wait?
Actually, I would actually appreciate input from commissioners who were on the commission maybe 3 or so years ago. There were, I have a copy of a draft policy for digital marquee that the Planning Commission actually referenced in their staff reports when the new digital marquee was discussed at the council and the Planning Commission level. Looking through past minutes, it looked like draft policies were discussed. I couldn't gauge whether they were actually adopted. It didn't appear so from the minutes that they said they may require further discussion. But
Are you Park and Rec or planning? Because I remember.
Parks and Rec.
Yeah, I don't think. No, I don't. I know we discussed it.
Parks and Rec discussed it, but never fully adopted it. So planning had a copy of draft policies that were never finalized, but it was that policy, the draft policies that said no commercial messages may be posted. So we weren't sure if the direction was given to remove commercial messages from an option for the digital marquee, and that staff never followed up by removing it from the fee schedule, or if it was never fully discussed and adopted.
My recollection is that there was a sentiment that we did not want commercial messages. I really feel like that just goes against.
That was clearly conveyed in the minutes, but the final product being adopted and proposed by the commission wasn't conveyed.
Okay, well, that's not surprising, but that was the sentiment. So unless people feel differently now, I would vote.
Now would be a good time to weigh in on that. And
Does anyone feel differently?
I just have a question. Would commercial, let's say it's another community organization, but that's not Corte Madera, Parks and Rec, or someone who's an individual, putting up a personal message. For example, let's say it's like CYO basketball. Would that be considered commercial, or is that still among the community organizations?
I feel like we have had advertisements from St. Pat's and other.
I do too. So that's what I'm wondering. Why
asking for, letting people know the enrollment window was open for certain activities.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think the clarification we need to make is that it's not for-profit commercial use. Not for profits, community organizations, all of that's great. It's an information board. It's not an outdoor advertising billboard.
Exactly. Good. I just think that that's important to clarify.
So I think that nuance, Louise, are we going by first names? Sorry to.
Yes.
Is that okay? Okay, let's do it. I think that distinction of informational is helpful because so I also was not interested really in having a lot of commercial or advertisement up there, but my thought was that's content based and we could get some pushback for that. And so how do we define it? If someone wanted to have a political message up there, is that fine? So I think rather than defining it as commercial, which again is content-based speech, how can we define what it's for the marquee more than what type of speech we allow on it? I think that might be safer and maybe helpful for us internally. So that was just an idea I had.
If I can add the item number 8 from the draft policies that the commission discussed a few years ago, it says no commercial messages may be posted, no messages that are political in nature may be posted, no religious messages, no vulgar or inflammatory language may be used in any messages, is how the commission had discussed it at one point.
So would an event like, let's say at one of the wine bars or Cafe Verde, would that be considered commercial or would that be just an event that is being promoted? I'm thinking, I mean, an event, right? That would be acceptable
I
in
think
my
a
mind.
commercial event under our policies, unless it was something the town partnered on. We have discussed that internally, and when those things come up, usually Parks and Rec staff would send it over to the town for confirmation that this was an event the town had authorized and endorsed and possibly co-sponsored. So in that case, an event that another business was participating in that the town was the overarching sponsor of, that would be allowed. But it's more of a case-by-case basis. That should
Yeah,
probably be tightened up.
It probably merits a little bit of clarification because there's the crab feed as an example, that's always promoted. And then Zins is doing a series of music concerts for the entire community hosted at Menke Park. Would that qualify, or is that a Zins commercial use?
They rent the park, so I think that would be commercial.
Because we have time on this, like I'm hearing, and I think maybe we all share the sentiment that we don't feel like this is meant to be for commercial, but since we have time, is this something that we might ask the city attorney to opine what restrictions we can put on this public space with respect to content-based speech, so we don't get ourselves in any bit of a jam?
Yes, yes, this would be one of those items that you can direct staff to look into in greater detail and bring back in the final iteration of the fee schedule.
And I don't want to go over the top on this. I just, there's a lot out there on this.
Honestly, it's been dormant for some time, and then all of a sudden, the Parks and Recreation Department got a couple requests for commercial use of the reader board, and it caught a lot of us by surprise because we didn't think that that was an option, but there it was in our fee schedule.
I do like Emily's lens of what is it for, as well as what are we not allowing? Because if we talk about what is it for, if it's about informing the community about events that are free for them, but produced by a for-profit business in one of our parks, that feels like maybe we're splitting hairs too far. That the intent, if the intent is to communicate opportunities for recreation and community building, we might want to think about that term commercial more precisely.
I totally agree.
Okay, so I think it's back to you, Ashley, to talk with the town attorney and see if we can get something refined that is specific to what we don't want, which is probably more important than what we do want.
Duly noted. All right, moving into the Neil Cummins Gymnasium. There's currently a rate line item for Marin residents and non-residents, St. Patrick's CYO basketball and St. Patrick's CYO volleyball. Staff proposes to change the Marin residents to Corte Madera Larkspur residents and have other Marin residents included in the non-resident category only. Staff also suggests, requests the commission discuss special rates for St. Patrick's CYO sports, particularly discrepancy between the rates of the two sports, basketball and volleyball, and moving them under the resident rate. Staff research revealed that the staff report from a previous Parks and Recreation director to the town council on March 20th of 2018 noted that any programs that utilize school district property require that all Marin County residents be charged the same fee. This requirement applies to soccer fields, tennis courts, Neil Cummins Gym, picnic sites, and the Cove Park. Since the summer program utilizes these facilities, residents and non-residents are charged the same rate when enrolling. Current staff will continue to research this point with the Larkspur Corte Madera School District, but I have not seen anything that leads to this discussion.
Meaning that there's nothing within what you've found so far that would suggest that we can't have a resident and a non-resident rate?
Yes, and one of the reasons that, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
One of the reasons that I'm asking to the commission to consider making it a resident, non-resident versus Marin County resident is that that's the only area that is different in our fee schedule. And it also doesn't work for our software system. So with our software system, if we create a family, which is a family account, they ask for the zip code. So you have a resident and non-resident. It's deemed right when you register. So if you're signing up, say, a volleyball club from outside of Corte Madera Larkspur, let's say from Santa Fe, they're now being charged the Marin resident rate, which really they're a non-resident rate for local So we really wanted to kind of define that difference. So that's the background on that request.
I think that's
Makes sense. Does anybody have any other comments on this?
And in our software system, when we have to override those costs, so if the volleyball club was entered into our system as a non-resident because they're outside of Larkspur, Corte Madera, then their rates have to be changed every single time they use the gym. And if you have a gym rental that is 5 days a week, that's a lot of clerical time that's put into that and room for errors.
That makes sense. Ashley, do we have any history on why basketball and volleyball got such a different price?
It's my understanding that came from past commission decisions. Vice Chair, Co-Chair Janowski, would you like to elaborate on that?
There was a personal relationship by one of the past commissioners who asked for a favor and was granted it.
Okay.
So it doesn't really make any sense. I think the rest of us feel that all youth sports that are nonprofit should be paying the same rate. So that was our recommendation also to fix that.
I just didn't know if there was any kind of number of kids equity thing that I didn't understand there. Okay, Great.
No, through my lens, it's the same facility.
Okay.
It's not that the basketball weighs so much more than the volleyball.
Yeah.
Moving into outdoor facilities, this section includes the fees for picnic sites, Menke Park, athletic fields, tennis court keys, and sand volleyball courts, and they're separated to the fees Corte Madera resident and non-residents, as well as requiring deposit for some rentals. Staff would like the commission to discuss possible increases to fees for athletic fields, as well as possibly additional soccer fields to the list and defined out differently, which currently only includes baseball fields, the use for Twin Cities Little League and softball. And possibly increase in fees. These line items would need to be negotiated in the current use agreements that we have. And staff brings up this discussion to open the conversation and determine if this is something the commission recommends that staff pursue in advance of any subsequent review of the fee schedule. Staff would also like the commission to discuss impossible increases of the tennis court keys and the removal of the daily court key rate. If the commission recommends increasing annual key rates, staff would provide benchmark rates from neighboring agencies at future meeting. And programs. Right now we have the Corte Madera Children's Center, and that was the one that was recently amended in July, and we do not recommend any fee increases at that time or adjustments. We really want to see how the program goes the first year and then go back and evaluate it afterwards. So possibly considering adjustment next year. Corte Madera Age Friendly Integration Center, this line item should be deleted since the center is no longer in operation at the community center, and staff is working to integrate the popular programs into the curriculum offered by the department. Summer Playground. This program was not offered in 2020 or in 2021 due to COVID and was replaced with a temporary program that was able to be more, was able to fluctuate and adhere to state and county guidance and restrictions. And staff recommends removing this program from the fee schedule to allow the department the opportunity to rebuild and rebrand the traditional summer camp under new leadership in the wake of COVID-19, and staff would like to offer the community a new program for summer 2022. And finally, permit fees. This section includes fees for filming and special event permits. And these, excuse me, these uses are not frequently in request. And staff does not have a recommendation for increases at this time. Excuse me. Section 4 of the resolution states the use of fees, charges excluding duty staff applicable to the uses of the town's park and recreation facilities shall not be applied to town-sponsored programs, town homeowners associations, town civic organizations, and Larkspur Corte Madera School District. Regarding Section A, the Corte Madera Volunteer Firefighters Association is an outdated term. No such group exists and should be replaced with Central Fire Authority. Section B, no homeowners associations have requested the use of community center for meetings and recent records. The commission should discuss whether to continue this, offer this option to homeowners associations, and if so, determine the fee that should be charged and clarify that a facility attendant fee would be added to those fees should the commission choose to implement that. Section C, Staff does not have the current building use agreements on file. They would like the commission direction on possibly engaging group to enter into the building use agreement. Staff notes that it is important to codify use and expectations from each of the community groups to recoup the cost of the services of a facility attendant to set up the tables and chairs per group specifications, be available for assistance and troubleshooting during the meeting or event, and take down and put away tables and chairs and secure the facility. Section D, the town has a current JPA and joint use agreement in place, and no changes are recommended at this time. Section 5 of the resolution states employees of the town of Corte Madera and the Central Marin Police Authority and the Central Marin Fire Department shall be allowed to participate in the Corte Madera Summer Playground Program at no charge for their immediate family. All other use of the Parks and Recreation programs and facilities will be charged to the standard rate minus 25%. The commission is asked to discuss if this is support for recommending the council continue to offer this benefit to the town staff as well as the fire and police staff. And that would be a caveat to whether it's going to be retaining the 25% less of those or another summer camp program if we're choosing to replace the summer playground to traditional. Sorry. All right, turning it over to discussion.
So there was a lot within this permit fee section that I think you were asking for commission feedback on. So I want to make sure that we touch on each of those specifically. Some of them seem very straightforward, like changing Corte Madera Volunteer Firefighters Association to Central Marin Fire Authority. Is there any comment or question regarding the suggestion that the Homeowners Association be eliminated potentially from inclusion in future fee schedules simply because this has not been utilized? Is that one possible approach?
And then just have them pay the standard fees if that were to present itself.
That would be my expectation. They'd pay a resident fee.
Right.
I think that makes sense because if we are going to be providing the service of having somebody, an attendant there to set up for them, then I would imagine there's quite a few homeowners associations that could start using it. And we wouldn't want to have to pay staff, and not be able to recoup those costs.
And we also have lost revenue opportunity. It's an opportunity cost if we get all the neighborhood groups using it and then someone that's a paying customer can't use it. So,
yep.
I'm sorry, I had thought we were going back to indoor facilities, back to the top and working through. We're in the permit section.
This is indoor facility using the community center.
Okay, we have gone back to the top. Okay, thanks.
Hang on there. Let's clarify because the indoor facilities is a separate section within this that I think we were trying to capture questions as we went. So perhaps we're still on the question and clarification point of this discussion, and then we would open it to public comment, and then we'll come back for final commission discussion and decisions and direction to staff. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, it does. And I'm sorry then, my fellow commissioners, I misunderstood and was holding my questions till the very end.
I think this is for questions and clarification. So on anything within this report, I think let's make sure that our questions have been asked, and then we would open it to public, and then we'll come back and have a final discussion and direction to staff. Okay.
Got it. Thanks.
So are there questions that haven't been answered along the way?
So I do have some input for you that may help on this discussion. I think that town hall may have some of the smaller groups covered in ways that they hadn't been in the past. In non-COVID times, smaller neighborhood groups like the NRGs in the area that wanted to meet together but not at someone's house would arrange to pick up the key for our council chambers and use that as a community gathering space. And I know the intention is to have a similar space in the new town hall facility and possibly in our rental facility. So I don't think that the community center needs to be the catch-all for that anymore, because it is the intention to have a community gathering space in the town hall facilities.
I noticed later on in maybe section 4, there was a discussion of waiver for some of the groups, but going back earlier to section 3, where we were talking about, for example, the community center, I generally didn't have a problem, and I thought the recommendations of these rates and adding in a flat fee for building attendant and whatnot made sense. But I was curious if we have any waiver form or opportunities for people other than those where there's sort of a pre-waiver. If there's a group that for some reason is unable to pay and wants access. And the reason, just to be candid, is that I don't mind charging more if there's an opportunity for folks that maybe couldn't handle that increase in cost. There's an opportunity for them to still use the facilities if they applied for a waiver.
We don't have a process for that. I don't know if Ashley has anything to add, but we could always look to see if other neighboring agencies of similar size offer something like that. We hadn't accounted for any unmet need.
I can offer one example from City of Santa Fe is that they had something where if there was a neighborhood group on HOA or something that wanted to use a community center room, if the building was already going to be utilized and opened for something else because they had breakout classroom space, for example, you could be having a class in one room that has already been hosted and paid for, and there's another room available. If it was 2 weeks out and that room wasn't booked, then the community group could utilize that room for free as long as it was within those hours that the building was already going to be open, or they would be paying the facility attendant fee as the difference.
Okay.
Ashley, I just had one minor question. It was regarding the elimination of daily keys for tennis. Is that something that's not being accessed at this point? And so it seems like an easy elimination?
Yes, I have not had anybody ask to utilize a key for one day. They've just been purchasing the key for the year.
Okay, great, thank you. Rebecca, do we have any public comment or hands raised on this particular issue of fees?
I am seeing a raised hand, and we did not receive any emailed public comment. So we will call on David McPherson. Hello, David.
Hello, am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Thank you, commissioners. I listened to the resolution and I thought that I caught at the end that part of the suggestion was that there would be a discount for members of the Central Marin Police Authority and the fire department for their families to attend recreational summer camps and other things put on by Corte Madera. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. You know, we all
that's an existing.
That's an existing, that already
Correct.
exists. All right.
Yes.
Well, then I'll essentially withdraw my comment. I thought if that was something that was new that was going to be offered, I just think that that's an interesting slippery slope. And given wages that are being paid and other people who should possibly qualify, we shouldn't go down that path. However, if it is an existing policy that's been in place for a while, then I withdraw my comment and thank you for listening.
Thank you for the comment. I think we also offer scholarship opportunities to others who may not be able to pay. So there are other chances for people who may be in a position to not be able to afford summer camp to apply for some offset.
Got it.
Okay, Rebecca, do we have any other hands raised or should we bring it back to the commission for a final discussion and direction to staff?
No, there are no additional hands raised and no emailed public comments were received.
Okay, so this was a lot to go through. Ashley, thank you for laying it out so clearly and denoting where you would like to get commission direction. Are there commissioners that would like to make some comments and provide direction to Ashley?
Yeah, so for me, please, if I'll take them in order, with the inline facilities or the indoor facilities, I think it makes complete sense to have a building attendant fee. Personal pet peeve of mine, though, if something is always going to be charged because it's always necessary, generally I think it's embedded in the underlying cost. I never like to see a cost of something and then have a bunch of things that are necessarily built in, but somehow charged separately. So we might consider that. Or if it's not, if it's as an as-need basis, then understanding that process a little bit more. I'm also interested in, as I mentioned, understanding if we do have any sort of waiver program, because I think our community is supportive of our programs and these prices are very reasonable. But I think if they come, even increased prices, if they come with the understanding and the knowledge that there's a possibility of waiver, I think that they are received even better. I know when I see something that has the possibility of a waiver, I think, oh, I'm paying a little more because I'm contributing to the entire community, and I like that. So I'm interested in hearing if there's any possibility for a waiver or how other communities might handle that.
Great. Emily, did you have anything on any of the other elements? We just leave it in your court for now. If there's anything else, I want to make sure I hear you out.
Oh, thanks. I mean, I'm not certain if it's appropriate if I just go through and provide my general comments. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, let's just pause for a second. Ashley, what's easier for you, to take everything on a section by section basis?
I think it might be easier to have the same conversation per section.
Okay, great. So anybody else on indoor facilities?
I definitely agree in terms of having the attendant cost. I think that's totally appropriate, and it serves the person renting and it serves our entity as well. So no question. I think that Emily's point is valid, that if it's, I guess maybe I want to better understand what wouldn't require an attendant unless it was us, and then we would, unless it's the town, then you're not charging. So curious as to what, when that wouldn't be appropriate, and if it's better optics to just build it in. Although then it looks like a much larger pay increase, so maybe that's why.
I think it might be hard to build it in because we're renting it by the hour, right? And a 2-hour event could take the same amount of setup from the attendant as a 5-hour event. So then charging that fee for a service really instead of a rental makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, got it.
That makes sense.
That does make sense.
Cheerfully withdrawn my comment.
Okay, I think that's some good direction, Ashley, for you to clarify in this particular section. Let's move on to digital marquee. We've already talked about getting the town attorney's point of view on how to articulate this so that we can clarify that we're looking for an informational use, a celebratory use, something that promotes our community as opposed to commercial use. But we probably need to clarify that so that there's an opportunity for not-for-profits to post their messages as well.
And maybe who makes that evaluation? I'm just curious about that and the direction that they might be provided, because there are times I think it's going to be a hard call.
I think staff has done it up to now. Maybe. I mean, do you feel confident? Do you feel comfortable, Ashley, with staff doing it, or if there was something that was a question, you would consult the attorney, maybe, or one of us?
I think I'm very confident in my staff's ability to kind of understand whether this is something they should ask more questions about, and if I don't have the clear line, then we go straight to our management and attorney for support.
I guess, Ashley, do you feel like you need stronger language as a foundation to back up the staff's decisions?
I think it was just in general when it came up to the word commercial. So I think the direction from the commission to have that more defined from our legal support will be a good step in the right direction. And should we have any more questions after we get that advice from the town attorney, then I can bring that up at the next meeting.
Okay, should we move on to Cumins Gym? I think simplifying this is absolutely the right thing to do. It doesn't make sense to me that there were any different rates applied to different organizations and going to a resident or non-resident rate. It feels like the clarity, both for the organizations and simplicity for us from an administration standpoint.
Yep, I completely agree with that.
I do as well.
I think that maybe as we're making that change, it allows for a smooth window to inform St. Patrick's CYO that both sports will be charged the same cost.
I bet you they don't have any idea. Well, I bet you some of them don't know that there's a different rate.
Well, when they find out there was, they may not be very happy.
I don't think people study the fee schedule too carefully.
I agree. I'm sure it's fine, but at least it just shows we're reevaluating the fee schedule in general. And
Would you like staff to reach out to them to get their input and invite them to attend the next meeting where this will be discussed?
I don't feel that
hurt
need
the
because I'm not motivated to make their two different prices, but I will defer to the rest of the commissioners on that.
I don't think it's necessary.
I don't see a need to do that either. So just to be clear, so then St. Patrick's CYO volleyball and basketball will pay the $70 per hour, the Corte Madera Larkspur rate, correct? Okay. I think that's good.
Okay, outdoor facilities. There were a couple of notes within this section for commission feedback. One was whether or not to include soccer fields in the list of those outdoor facilities that have fees established, but with Corte Madera residents and non-residents. And I would suggest, yes, absolutely. We should incorporate all of the facilities that fall into the outdoor definition. And I don't know if that would also include pickleball courts. I don't know how those are handled relative to the tennis courts. If that needs to be clarified.
I don't believe pickleball courts existed on our tennis court facilities the last time this fee schedule was reviewed by the commission. So it may be worth looking at.
Ashley, on the use of the soccer fields, are we talking about organizations using them, or are we talking about the sort of enforcement of non-use, like freeload use that happens? I mean, are we trying to
cost?
Are we trying to, since we're cracking down on code enforcement, or can we talk about the poaching use of the soccer fields that happens on the weekends?
I'm not sure that was actually in the background of it, but it's a good point to consider. I think it was just really defining it out and making it a little bit easier for us to have costs associated and have publicly advertise what's available for rent and what's not available. And maybe it's part of our community education for those groups that are utilizing the field without obtaining a permit.
I think that's been one of my pet peeves for years. And I mean, literally, like, the park is overrun with soccer players, adult soccer players on the weekends. So it's just something that's always bothered me a little bit.
Then do we start extending that to like personal trainers who are running exercise classes in the early mornings in the park and things like that? Do we try to capture that and have that as, they're technically using part of the park for their commercial use?
Most of those have obtained permits for us, and we rent them the spaces based on the picnic area costs. It seems to be a reasonable rate right now for a lot of them. But again, open to the commission for any suggestions on how you would like to see it pursued.
Is that
We do our best to make
add
sure
a
that
line
people aren't
item?
utilizing it.
Should we add that rate into our fee schedule and highlight that as something that's available for?
Well, right now, the areas are usually located near a picnic area. There's a couple that aren't, but most of them we try to identify near a picnic area because it's easier to direct participants to a location on our map.
Is that that's just a COVID era use case, or is that an ongoing?
Most of it came from COVID, but in other jurisdictions that I've worked in, it's pretty common. There's usually a couple of businesses that don't want to contract directly with the town or the city to go through a contractual agreement of splitting percentages so they can rent it. Some agencies don't offer that opportunity.
I think as long as we're adding clarity to our fee schedule, it makes sense to denote that we have spaces that can be used for group classes, and that they fall under the same, picnic rates that you've been utilizing. Because if we're going to promote this, it gives us an opportunity to continue to derive revenue from use by fitness trainers and others who want to use space in the park.
And there are other parks that have open space for a group of little kids that wants to, play softball or kick a ball around and things. So we're just talking about these sort of more defined places, aren't we?
Town park and then areas of Cove.
And I think we're talking about organized group use of a space as opposed to a pickup game of 10 kids who went down to the park with a soccer ball.
Yeah. Because the former, I think we want to include all of the sports we talked about, and the latter, wouldn't want to discourage.
Right.
One thing for the commission to consider is if we define soccer fields rather than athletic fields, then right now the general term athletic fields versus a baseball diamond, that incorporates rugby, lacrosse, flag football, anything else that might be utilizing athletic fields.
If it's a matter of semantics, I think athletic fields for sure.
Makes more sense. Yeah. So just to clarify, we are looking to charge for people who are running businesses on the athletic fields, but we are not looking to stop people from organizing time with their friends when those fields are available, regardless of how many friends they are. Or is there what is our definition of charge, don't charge, or kind of you're in violation of the fee structure or not?
Interpretation is that groups that are utilizing the field for a planned organized activity, so that would be a regular period of time, time for soccer that the same group is getting together, that is a group that should be utilizing our fee and making sure that they have rented in advance, that we have their insurance. If they're an organized group, then they should have insurance to provide us as well as the rental fee. But if it's a group that's, going to join down there, before Thanksgiving, and they're going to have their annual whatever, I don't see that as a group that should be charged. It's a one-off versus a regular planned activity.
So if I just had with my neighborhood, every Friday at 3, we're going to beat up at the basketball courts and shoot hoops together, we need to rent as opposed to first come, first serve.
Yes, because essentially you would be blocking off that space every week at the same time for anybody else to utilize it, is my interpretation.
Yeah, I feel like that's if we're just talking about a place to recreate and we're doing it on a first come, first serve basis, is different from I'm running a basketball clinic and that's my business.
Maybe also the definition is whether your pickup group of your neighborhood is allowing other people to join you, or whether it's exclusive use.
Yeah.
Also, presumably, if there was that pickup game, but someone had rented it for that time, you get booted.
You get pickup game gets booted.
about
First come, first serve. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking, that it, if you're just a bunch of people trying to self-organize on a true recreation, that it's a first come, first serve. And if it's available, great. If other people show up, want to do stuff, you do the neighborly thing.
And also to define that, for example, these groups that are trying to come in and be on a regular basis for like adult soccer, is that they pay to be a participant of that league. And so they should be paying to utilize our fields.
That feels different. Yeah. Corte Madera FC, where you are paying to join the league, feels like they should be paying. So that makes sense. So I think if you're a paying league versus just this is my ladies pickleball afternoon.
So it's almost twofold. It's a commercial element, but also you're paying to reserve. That's what you're doing. The other ones, however regular they are, presumably if other people join, they join, or you can get booted if you haven't reserved. Is that am I understanding that correctly? And that makes sense to me.
Caution the commission that we'd have to have a very tight definition, because that will come into play.
Yeah. It will be hard to regulate that, because you won't always know.
I think maybe this is another place maybe to get the attorney's assistance in how to articulate this, because it may be a one-off situation. It may not be regular, but it may be planned and a closed event, to Alden's point, where you can't just join up if you show up. And I think that we just need to have some really clear parameters for determining whether or not this would have been a situation that should have been going through the normal process of reserving and paying the fee. Because I think some of those soccer leagues, they're there one Saturday and then at a different facility the next Saturday. So it's not regular. And I don't know that they're always necessarily reserving, but they take over the field, right? And it's not an open opportunity for others to play. It's a tricky one.
Yeah, when I think about it, and compared to the tennis courts where you've paid for a key, but you haven't paid for a time and you just show up. You might get the court or not. You might have to wait for the court to open up, or you might need to go to a different park to play your game. So I don't know if that can be somehow applied to the idea of, showing up for hoops or, any other kind of casual get-together sport event.
Well, what's interesting also with tennis in that regard is that there's sort of a natural understanding of a time limit when you're on the court. Even if you have a key and you're, there appropriately, there's an expectation of a time limit, where I don't think that that's the same in other sports and on the fields. So that's where I think where the problem becomes, because you have a adult soccer league that can come and take the field for hours. It takes away from that pickup neighborhood game, right?
Okay, well, I think you're hearing sentiment. I think it's going to take a little crafting to try to figure out how to put that on paper and policy so that we can enforce it. On to programs. Does anybody have any further comments? I would propose that we go with the recommendations as proposed here.
I
agree.
Okay. On permit fees, there are a number of different things here. I think that the staff recommendation for keeping the special event permit fees makes sense. And that we can simplify what we do with other organizations, perhaps eliminating the homeowners association, and going forward with staff's recommendation that specific use fees get codified with each of the other town civic organizations that use space on an ongoing basis.
I thought the recommendations made sense. I wondered about certainly the town civic organizations, if there was any sort of process by which they instead of the onus on us to revisit these each year, see which clubs are continue to be active and which don't, that they renew their request for a fee waiver each year or something. I don't know if that makes more sense. Because I know some of the, at least one of these clubs, for example, was not active for, you know, some of these last years. And this would be a way to kind of keep that record keeping active, make sure there has been no change in the spirit of their organization that has transferred it into a for-profit, or I don't know, anything like that. But that might take a little bit of something off of your plate, Ashley, if, you know, every January they renew their fee waiver application and certify whatever they've certified in the past. I don't know if that's helpful to you.
Are the current agreements just open-ended, if they exist at all?
The current agreements I found in the vault going back to maybe 1994. All of our community organizations have just reserved dates for their specific events, and town staff set up for the events. And in the case of the Lions Club, they set up for their own events and clean up after their own events. But all the other groups utilize town staff for the most part. And so it's been a sort of a free service that we have provided. And that's why Ashley was looking for commission direction on how to proceed with, and if the commission wanted staff to reach out and sort of codify their agreements and seek possible compensation and possibly allowing for a certain number of free uses per year, with the caveat that they pay for an undetermined amount of the building attendant, either a 1 hour fee or a 2 hour fee, or whatever the commission is interested in us looking at. And then we would need to meet with each group individually and sort of enter into a facility use agreement for whatever the commission would like us to explore.
Can I ask with what frequency these groups actually use the facilities and in what capacity? Is it a meeting of 10 people sitting in chairs, or is it, I mean, I know some of them are more larger events, but what's the general?
As an example, we did actually go through some of our regular groups and put a monetary value against their typical use for a year. So for example, Lions Club meets monthly, twice a month from 5 to 9, 4 hours each. But not meeting in November and December. They have a volunteer dinner, a crab feed, a spring event, 4th of July, Oktoberfest, and they have reader board messages. The Women's Club has meetings 4 times a month. That's roughly 14.5 hours per month, except for November and December. They have a giant yard sale, reader board messages. Let's see. Age Friendly has a monthly speaker series, the 3rd Wednesday of each month. They have a couple different events, reader board messages. The town band has a winter concert, spring concert, reader board messages. Big band has once a month. Kind of, that's how it kind of goes. When we get these groups, we're really seeing these groups a couple times a month, each of them. So it really starts to add up. And if we're constantly providing these services and the opportunity to use the facility for free, it is at an opportunity cost for us to be able to support our revenue and offset our staff time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for a while. And when you add up all those hours, it just feels like, how are we trying? I mean, I know when we were tasked with trying to increase revenue pre-COVID, and if it feels like we have, I mean, these are all great community groups, but there might be other places. I mean, what about like meeting at people's houses for meetings, like the old fashioned way? I mean, it feels like we're giving up a lot of rental opportunity if we have each of these groups using it a couple times a month.
Yeah.
The groups, just to not put names against the total dollar value of their rentals for a year, but one of them is 30,000 and one of them is 37,000.
Yeah.
Is
So
there-
I would think that, you know, as short, I would like to see either a limit on the amount per year, because I also think at some point the clubs, might forget that this is a real service. And if they're like, oh, we have these, I'm making it up, we have 10 free a year, it, I think, also makes people feel a little bit of gratitude for the 10 they have. And it's not just a right that they always get, they haven't done anything. So I would like to see maybe some limits. I'm flexible on what, I just threw out 10, but and if the Lions Club can set up and break down on their own, then I think either the rest of the clubs can as well, or they know if they don't, then they do pay the attendant fee. I assume that they provide some proof of insurance. So I think that's.
I was just going to add, in the case of the Lions Club, they do carry their own insurance.
Yeah.
So I think they would be
important
if they were injured on our property.
Yeah, because that's also, that's a cost that maybe hasn't come to fruition yet, but that's certainly a burden on a public entity. So I would think, it just a short every year kind of renewal where they provide their insurance and they get to sort of reconsider, okay, now we're back to 10 again, start of the year, whatever it is, a limit that's put, and they have an understanding about cleanup or breakdown, or they pay that fee. That's my gut response right now, but I would like to hear what others have to say.
That makes sense to me. I do think it would be good to put a limit on it. The difference between having a community group meeting and having a community group revenue generating event is, it really, for me, feels like in the latter, we should be charging a use fee for the facility. If they're making money, then it's a lot, and there are a lot more people that are participating. It's a lot more wear and tear on the building. And that is an event that would otherwise have to reserve a space. So is there a charge that we can place for the use of the facility for things like the crab feed? It doesn't have to be onerous, but it doesn't seem like we should give that away, in my mind.
So I know that
I was thinking the same thing about maybe looking at events versus meetings. Also, are there things that these groups give back to the town in terms of, community involvement, community activities, even donations back to the town? So, I wouldn't want to discount all of that, and maybe having a certain number of free meetings, or I don't know what can some of these groups afford, and maybe if they can't afford it, maybe they should meet in their own home or something. I don't know.
Yes, all of these groups do give back to the town in some tangible way, in the form of scholarships for our youth for the camp program, a scholarship for high school students going to college, they give back to town events, they contribute to beautification around the town and other resources. So they do give back.
I would suggest, I think it's worth talking to a couple of these groups about what it would mean for them to be charged in any form, because I do think that, we have this space to promote community and recreation, and these clubs, to Rebecca's point, are doing a lot. So we just need to make sure we don't, by charging them a fee, kind of put them out of business.
Yeah.
So whether they get a separate rate because they're a community-based organization or a free rate or something that's different, but I think it's worth having a conversation to understand those implications for them.
I think for starters, Ashley was just going to introduce to the conversation the idea of recouping some portion of the facility attendant charge for setting up and taking down, whether it was an hour of that or something, but something tangible to offset the cost of the town is going to have to undertake to hire this position, which we can't have events back and we can't have meetings back in this space because we currently don't have a facility attendant. Yeah. So we're recruiting for one on a part-time basis, but knowing that person's hours could increase once we're able to bring events back. But
for that example,
to bear.
Yeah, for that example would be an hourly rate, so that we can pay to have a staff member or somebody representing the staff on site during the whole time that they're there. So not only do the setup and breakdown, but they're there to troubleshoot and really protect the facility and the people that are in it.
Makes sense. But not, you're not suggesting anything beyond that at this point. It's just that.
Just to have a net zero for us on staffing, not necessarily addressing the opportunity cost of what we could rent the facility if they weren't there, because it's guaranteed that we wouldn't be renting the facility all of the different hours these groups would be utilizing, because they do a lot of during the day events and meetings that we wouldn't be normally renting the facility out to the general public.
That's the other thing, right? You know, there could be an either or a limit if that was something to consider, or a time parameter, right? Because you're right, if it's not being used at all, I'm not trying to be a curmudgeon here. If it's not being used at all, it's lovely to have it used, and we're not paying a staff attendant, or they're doing that work. And I'd rather see the space be used than remain empty.
Okay, I think you've got some good feedback to work with. Clear? Okay. One final thing is the section 5 of the resolution to provide free summer playground program participation for several members of the community and their families, and reduction in rates. And I would say we should absolutely continue to provide that to our public servants. Do other people have a point of view on that?
I agree with that. I think it is, I see it sort of as a benefit of being an employee of the town.
I agree. I'm curious how much is actually utilized though. Do you guys have any information on that, and who takes advantage of this opportunity?
Don't have exact numbers to give you, but it's my understanding there's really only a handful.
Yeah. I think it's great.
Yeah, I wouldn't change that.
I mean, the camp wasn't free for staff during the times when it wasn't the summer playground that was several hundred children strong. When it was the smaller, more expensive program, staff were offered the 25, was it a 25% discount, I believe? So you could consider bringing that forward as well, instead of the full free option.
Well, I think too, we don't know what summer playground is going to be moving forward. So it's kind of hard to make that decision. I mean, some of this goes back a number of years. For as long as I know, the kids club and the summer playground were free to staff or to town employees and their families. And then kids club went away rather suddenly, and a number of town employees all of a sudden found that their childcare costs went up substantially, and what had been kind of like a benefit to being an employee disappeared pretty much overnight. And so the summer camp was carried on, and we also made the conscious decision to not offer it to commissioners, which had been done in the past, but to continue offering it to our civil servants, because we felt like that was an important thing to do as a department and as a town. So there's a little bit of a background there. I think, you know, if it is something we think about changing for the town employees, it's something we think, you know, take a lot of thought before we make any decision to do that.
Okay, so it sounds like this might be something to revisit and just clarify and confirm once the new summer program is laid out, but it seems like there's general support for continuing this as a benefit to those people who serve our community.
I agree.
Okay. Okay, that was a meaty item. If everybody is comfortable moving on, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is item 5B, a review and discussion of Parks and Recreation Commission goals. And I believe Ashley is going to share a staff report with us.
And this is only a 2-page staff report, so we're on the home stretch.
Yes.
The commission is asked to discuss the goals and priorities of the commission to be incorporated into the department's work plan review during the Town Council Strategic Planning Workshop on October 8th. The Parks and Recreation Commission typically identifies goals and priorities and develops a commissioner wish list to be incorporated into that plan. The time of year discussed has fluctuated over the last few years, but it's now included as an item for yearly review in September as an update for discussion of capital improvement projects for commission was in April. So the discussion, staff has outlined short and long-term wishes based on reviewing the wish lists and discussions from Parks and Recreation Commissions since 2018 and informal feedback received from the community. Using the exampled wishes provided below as a starting point, the commission is asked to discuss wishes and develop goals and priorities from those. So some of the short-term wishes that I reviewed were restroom solution in Town Park, seating under the shade structure in the playground at Town Park, completion of the Park and Recreation Master Plan, continued development of Town Park Plaza, phase 3, more programs for senior and active older adults, lights at the skate park, pickleball lines added to existing tennis courts at Granada Park, installation of park name signs at Skunk Hollow, Cove, and Town Park parks, community events such as music, movies, food trucks, etc. And the long-term wishes to support and determine based on results from the master plan survey, larger improved skate park, scooter park, artificial grass or synthetic athletic fields, a community pool, sorry, that should be an extra bullet point, solution for a winter operation of Town Park, the dog park, example, drainage and potential turf, new playground equipment or an element at Town Park, new playground or neighborhood park in East Corte Madera, improved signage or wayfinding in Town Park, improved lighting in Town Park, resurface the tennis courts, preschool program, community pool, and teen programs or events. Staff has suggested that all the wishes are reevaluated once the survey results from the master plan are published so that the Park and Recreation Department work plan can most accurately reflect the community needs and priorities. And staff also plans to request that Town Council considers support for an additional full-time recreation coordinator position to manage front desk operations, facility rentals, and senior programming. And staff suggests using savings from part-time recreation assistant hours significantly reduced during the pandemic and to promote an existing part-time recreation assistant into that position.
Any questions on the staff report?
No questions.
Rebecca,
That
do we have
makes a
any-
lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I think waiting on
Yeah.
the master plan data and survey results, obviously important.
Is there anybody from the public that has a question or comment on this, Rebecca?
I'm not seeing any raised hands at the moment, but I will check email first. And we did not receive any emailed public comments, and I still do not see any raised hands.
Okay, bring it back to the commission. I agree. I think this makes complete sense. We have the master plan in flight right now. We're getting a lot of information. I have an interim report for a little bit later in our agenda, and I think it'll be very clarifying once we have that data in our community engagement meetings to be able to put this list together with some confidence. Okay. No other comments? We will move on to staff updates and commissioner reports, and we'll start with the director update. So back to you, Ashley.
All right, I'll switch gears here. Senior outreach continues, weekly calls. We have the weekly puzzle and book exchange on Thursdays. And as of this last Wednesday, congregate grab and go meals began, and that'll be every Wednesday from 11 to 12. We're starting with 30 that we get from the county. 25 of those are meat and five of those are vegetarian. And it was really great to see people that we hadn't seen for a while last week come and pick up. It was kind of a mini reunion in the back, and how the logistics of that are working is that everyone gets to stay in their car. They drive up behind the community center just as the Lions crab feed to go went, and we bring out their food, confirm their order, and we take orders for the following week after menu items are shared. So the county provides what the menu is, and people can say yes and sign up for next week, or I'll pass and wait for the next week. It's really great. And I think that my staff that saw everything thought the meals were really good. So that was a really successful opportunity last week, and we look forward to Wednesday. Corte Madera Children's Center, pleased to share that the program is continuing to grow. Enrollment has increased from 74 in August to 84 in September. And as of last week, there were already 37 registered for October. The leadership team of Alex and Alex are doing great. They're doing great motivating their staff, connecting with families, and making the transition between school and before and after care seamless. They're even walking kids to and from enrichment classes on campus, which has been so helpful to be able to support our enrichment classes that Erin has been putting together. And luckily, we've been able to utilize the 2 portables next to the Children's Center. So it's really great. After school enrichment classes, again, Erin has produced 22 current classes between Neil Cummins, Cove, the Dance Studio, and the Community Center. A few of the most popular to highlight are drawing and painting. Amazing Science has 47. Spanish at Neil Cummins, carpentry, chess has 59, and Twinkle Toes dance. And there's even wait lists for 10 of those classes. There's also 6 new classes beginning in October from golf, carpentry, Friday night pizza and Dungeons and Dragons, Saturday multi-sports, Saturday basketball, skateboarding, and 3 new cocktail classes for adults. Some of the existing adult classes are pickleball, where there's 44 people in 4 classes, and tap, there's 22 in 2 classes, and watercolor with 11. The recruitment update from the program manager recruitment is that we should have final notification this week after the candidate goes through the background check with an earliest start date as of Monday. So next meeting, I will hopefully I will be able to introduce you to that person, and we're very excited to onboard them and catch them up to speed. Picnic area rentals have closed for the season. For 2021 reservations between July and Labor Day, there was 12, which was a revenue of $1,800. And that's compared to a typical year. For example, 2019, which the season was May 1st through Labor Day, there was 46 rentals for a revenue of $5,160. So didn't do too bad for the short season this year, but we're looking forward to having a safe and successful picnic rental season next year. Lobby hours for customer service. As of today, we opened the lobby. So if you wanted to come down and just check in and see what's new with our staff, we're open from Monday to Friday from 9 to 4. General support with any registrations, class questions, come by and look at the books. We've got the books and puzzles still in the lobby. And we are here for you. We're going to be tracking a log of all of our guests so that we track when people are coming, their frequency, and what their questions or services they're asking for, so we can kind of refine our hours based on need. And I think seasonally that might change as well. Integration of indoor meetings and activities. We've begun scheduling some of our community groups who previously routine facility renters indoors for small meetings. We're still in the process of finalizing additional protocols for facility use and liability related to COVID. We wanted to recognize the patients of our groups that have been and to resume their meetings inside, and we're doing all that we can to support them getting back to their norm. Tree inspection and removal in Town Park. I'm sure you've all seen the correspondence that's went through. The town proactively asked an arborist to evaluate the west side of Town Park. The conclusions are pretty significant, that over 10 trees being recommended for removal, citing drought and water conservation as predominant stress factors. The town is in the process of having the rest of the park evaluated for safety reasons and anticipates similar results. Our public works team is in marketing and placing safety tape and fencing, so you can go down and you can see which trees have been deemed unsafe and need to be removed. And those trees will be identified for removal and safety hazards. And our communications team will message the community continuously, and we have until we've removed all of those hazards. And that concludes my director's report. Any questions?
I have a question regarding the tree removal. Actually, someone approached me this weekend asking why there was the orange tape around some picnic areas, not others. And from what I could tell, there wasn't much signage about why and that it was a hazard. And I would encourage some signage, just because I feel like kids might get in there anyway, or, people don't always follow all the rules and they're just curious. And so I think that might be helpful to know that it's, so proactive of the town to do it, that's the purpose.
There was
I
good
think if we
communication in the
take down-
weekly email, but I know that doesn't go to everybody. So probably something on site is a good point, Shannon.
Yeah, I agree. I read the email. It was good, but we just know not everyone does. Or there's
Right.
so many people who come to the park who aren't Corte Madera residents. With soccer season, they're coming from all over the Bay Area.
And we have residents who don't email. We've heard that from them before. And I think if they see trees taken down without any sort of what they see as explanation beforehand, I think we're going to definitely hear from them. But also, I think it is really too bad to lose large mature trees because of water rationing. And I don't know if the arborist has any recommendations on how to save existing trees in our park, given our current drought situations, because they provide so much value from the perspective of shade and things like that, that I think it's worthwhile trying to look into how we can save the remaining trees.
Yeah, I agree, Sarah. It's a bummer, but I heard that also part of the it's not even just that they're, not getting enough water, but they get really diseased because they can't flush their systems. And so then sometimes that, they take out other trees as well. Like, it's so sad.
Okay, Ashley, thank you for that report. We'll move on to commissioner reports. The first is updates from recent town council meetings. I viewed asynchronously the September meetings. So I'm just going to quickly touch on a couple of things that were covered in those town council meetings that are pertinent or relate to what we do here on Parks and Rec. Those meetings can be viewed in their entirety through the archives or on YouTube. At the September 7th town council meeting, there was an MMWD presentation on the drought and an update on the water restrictions and conservation tips. I think we've all heard a lot of this information, but the really harsh reality is that we have 38% of total capacity in our reservoirs right now, and it's usually 2 times that at this time of year. So we are really, really, really dry. It's the lowest we've been since 1984. MMWD is still supporting some rebate programs and has a lot of conservation tips on their website. So encourage everybody to take a look at that and do what you can. There was a discussion around a solar contract that's been approved with Sonoma Marin Solar. There are 2 sites that will get solar panels. One of them is our community center. And there was some discussion about where to place those panels on the community center to ensure that if we do future renovation of the community center, we're not having to uninstall and take out something that is expensive to put in place. So the location for those solar panels is on the main roof, not on the little side roofs. And hopefully that is something that we can work around in any future expansion. The town offices are moving to Hunt Plaza on Tamil Vista, FYI. So when they reopen, that's where they will be for, I think it's about a 3-year term while town hall gets rebuilt, if I'm not incorrect. And there are going to be some additional LED lights installed in places that we sort of will care about and oversee. One of them is Menke Gazebo and the other is at Park Madera Center. And they're really making an effort to keep the glow of those lights warm, not the harsh blue light. And if anybody's interested, there's some samples in both decorative fixtures and the Cobra street lamps right at Willow on Tamalpais Drive. At the September 21st town council meeting, there was very little that was pertinent to Parks and Rec specifically, but there was a presentation and discussion about the use of body-worn cameras on our code enforcement officers. And this will be particularly relevant as it relates to Town Dog Park, and the citations and notifications that they've been giving. And this is just a best practice within code enforcement and the police to ensure that there is transparency and accountability for actions. So that's it from town council meetings. Emily, are you going to give an update on the executive advisory committee?
Sure.
Please?
So Louise and I met with Ashley, and as always, we went over the agenda and what were some agenda items. And then the two main things that we talked about were code enforcement and signage in Town Park, which Rebecca included in our packet. And Ashley, correct me if I get this wrong, but we do have 3 code enforcement officers right now. And I think I recall that they're spending like 75% of their time dealing with Town Park infractions with dogs off leash. So obviously we're still having a lot of problems, and the solution, while it might seem a little drastic, is to install 24 signs in Town Park in various locations as marked by the red dots. So the signs, as you guys saw in your materials, dogs must be on leash at all times, enforceable by fine. It's unfortunate, but they are strategically placed at locations where dogs are coming into Town Park. So hopefully with more signs, people can't use the excuse, I didn't know. So hopefully, I don't know, actually, you know, maybe we can report back, or at a future, in a couple of months, you can give us an update on our warnings and citations going down based on the signs. I'd be curious to see how well they work. Hopefully they do. And then the second item were these bike tool workstations. The Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee wanted to put these in. They're in some other towns. It's a great service. We have a lot of cyclists. We discussed a couple of options, as you see on this slide. And
I have the revised slides from the Public Works Director to share if you want me to screen share after your or during.
Okay, that would be great. Yeah, I see that you had sent that to us, but it isn't in the packet. So we now have 2 preferred locations that I think we want to just get commission input on. One on the west side and one on the east side. So this one on the west side is at Magnolia or Corte Madera Avenue in Tamalpais, right there on the corner. And then the other one on the east side is at San Clemente, right there in that area where the benches are. So, you know, we have a lot of cyclists. This is just a really nice amenity. I think it will be viewed as a convenience and just a nice service that is being offered. Does anyone, do we want to get more feedback on locations? Does anyone want to give input on that, or are we pretty comfortable? And now it goes to town council.
We were given the kind of just a heads up, since this is the advisory body to the Parks and Recreation. So as a park component, just kind of an FYI, so that you know what's coming through from the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
Perfect. Okay. So that was basically it for the executive subcommittee.
It looks like we do have public comment from a member of the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
Oh, perfect.
Just a minute, please, and I will bring him over. Hello, David.
Commissioners, again, it's David McPherson. I serve as the vice chair of the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. And Rebecca, I sent you an email with an image of the bike repair stand.
That's included in our packet.
They have it in their packet.
Excellent.
Yeah, David,
Thank
that's
you.
in our packet.
So the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee loves the fact that the community foundation came up with the funding and that Ashley supported it. And we had a very robust debate about locations. So those were our consensus as the best 2 locations for the first 2 repair stands, because it gets the most visibility from the most cyclists, and it's easy for people to pull over and use those. We also identified 2 or 3 additional places, and we're looking forward to raising the funds to have more than just those 2 bike repair stations. And it's just one additional amenity that the town provides that makes the community sort of a bicycle friendly community. And I think really is going to add visibility that says, you know, people on bikes are welcome. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, David.
Okay, we'll keep going. I'm actually going to suggest that we pause on the town park master plan survey because we're going to have a subcommittee report and will be redundant, or I can do it now and we won't need to cover it in the subcommittee report. Why don't I do that? Okay, this is just a brief top line. The master plan survey has been an incredible success from the standpoint of participation. We mailed out the survey, if everybody will remember, a paper copy to every resident of Corte Madera and made it available for response either through that paper copy or online. Our consultant that we worked with did some follow-ups with residents to ensure that we got as much participation as possible. We had a goal of 400 responses. We had nearly 700. So it was really an extraordinary response, and it gave us a high degree of confidence in the results. We will be publishing the results on our website soon, but I wanted to give you just a couple of key insights as we go forward. There was really good representation across demographic groups, which was great. And also by the time of, or the number of years that people have lived in Corte Madera. So we had a really good distribution of people who were new to Corte Madera, who had been here, 5 to 10 to 12 years, and now also have been here 20 plus years. So that was also helpful because it gives us confidence that we've got a well-represented group of interests and perspectives. There was strong agreement with the value that Parks and Rec provides to Corte Madera as a resource, enhancing quality of life, and the appeal of living here in Corte Madera, and perceptions that it strengthens the community. Almost 75% of people are satisfied with the overall value that they get with Parks and Rec, and 21% are neutral. So that means that very, very few people are dissatisfied, which is also a great testament to what Parks and Rec provides in the community today. Something that I will direct your attention to when we do publish the actual report is that we asked people for their interest in a wide variety of facilities and infrastructure improvements, programs, and opportunities to extend what Parks and Rec does today. And we then forced ranking, which really required people to prioritize what they thought was most critical in each of those categories. And it was the prioritization that helped get to an aggregation at the end of the survey analysis on those things that would be most valuable to the community based on the number of people who wanted it and the lack of that need being met today. So it's something that the consultant, it's their own tool that they use. It's called a priority investment rating. And again, it takes into consideration the priority that people place on having that amenity and the degree to which that need is not yet met in the community. So I'm going to just tell you what those priority investment ratings are for facilities and infrastructure and amenities and programs and activities, just to start to let this percolate in your brains. And I really encourage everybody to take a detailed reading of the report, and we will be moving forward with community engagement meetings to dig more deeply into these areas and have more discussions. The priorities for facilities and amenities. The first one by a long stretch was public swimming pool. The second one was trails, steps, and pathways. And the third was park benches to relax, read, and enjoy nature. So I actually love this result because they're high ticket items and low ticket items. They're things that we already have some of that we can continue to grow. There are opportunities, for instance, with trail, steps, and pathways. We have a lot of those in Corte Madera that aren't owned and operated by Parks and Rec, but maybe we just need to point people towards them. So again, as we move forward and start to think about what our wish list is, back to that business item, we'll want to think these things through and really make some recommendations based on what the community has said and what we think is feasible. For programs and activities, there were 4. The first one was weekly food truck event. The second one was outdoor concerts and performing arts. The third was cultural events. And the fourth was local history walks or tours. there's a lot of opportunity to dig more deeply into this and talk to the community about exactly what types of cultural events, for instance, and what types of outdoor concerts and performing arts. But there are also some nice synergies and connection points between programs and infrastructure and how we could map these together. For instance, if people want trails and steps and pathways and also want local history tours, those things can come together nicely to satisfy needs. So again, this is just a very brief top line. We will provide notification when that survey has been published to the website, and we will be having more discussion about this soon. The next steps for our subcommittee are to finalize that report, get it posted, continue our planning for getting the community engagement meetings scheduled, which right now look like they're going to have to be virtual or, hopefully at some point, maybe a hybrid, but we have to figure out the logistics for that and ultimately then get to a set of recommendations that will come back to the full commission on so that we can collectively make that wish list that was denoted in item 5B. Any questions on that?
Thanks, Louise. I know how much work you put into that, and it's really going to be very helpful. So thank you so much.
That was what I was going to say. Thanks.
Group projects. Okay, a quick update on Town Park Plaza. We're in discussions with the Corte Madera Community Foundation to come up with the best agreement on how to manage the existing furniture versus installation of new furniture under the trellis. And so we're paused right now while we work that through. There will obviously be some opportunity to make recommendations about Town Park Plaza as part of the master plan. And it may be that we need to defer until then before we get to a resolution on this. So for now, the tables that are there at Town Park Plaza will remain for the time being. Okay, does the programming subcommittee have any dates that they want to share? Just a reminder to everybody that after the last commission meeting, we designated 3 subcommittees to really steward some additional work and augment what staff was doing in some key areas that we felt could be real contributions from the commission. So the programming committee, the community engagement subcommittee, and then the master planning subcommittee. So over to programming if someone wants to just provide a quick update.
I can start with a summary of what we've done so far. Since the creation of our committee, we've met 2 times, and we decided to begin dividing up, researching other communities, park and rec programs, and looking at towns that are similar to ours, but in other, the East Bay, North Bay, South Bay, and making some comparisons regarding programs, costs, looking at their websites, just to see if there are some areas that of these towns that we like and might be something that we can do. We're also looking at exploring ways to promote program offerings. I believe that was one of the master plan identified areas of, that some people didn't know what we provide, and that has been a weakness for our website and just kind of promotional materials. So we're looking at ways to improve that and make the website more user-friendly. One suggestion was to, for example, list classes by days and times where, some parents might be looking for a particular time slot to fill, a day and an afternoon or something like that. We're also reaching out to special groups for their input. We want to reach out to teens, contact teen influencers, and get their opinions, and maybe help them help promote the programs that we offer, and senior groups, and create a wish list for Ashley develop from what we find. Anyone else want to add anything I've missed?
I'll just add that Ashley joined us for our second meeting, which was really helpful. And as we reviewed the different programs and insight we gathered from our extended research among the Bay Area, Ashley helped us sort of better understand it and develop that wish list that Elaine talked about.
Alden, do you want to give a quick summary of what we talked about for engagement?
Yeah, so what we identified or what we were looking to do within our community subgroup was finding ways to get the message out and get feedback back from the community more frequently. We've recognized we've got all this great information that came from the survey, but we're not going to be able to do that all the time. So what we have started is a list of a lot of the key groups that we know about throughout Corte Madera, and looking for a representative from each of those groups to kind of act as an unofficial conduit between the Parks and Rec Commission and the community. So they would be somebody we would reach out to and say, we have a question about this thing. What is your group? What is your group's feedback on it? And things like, we have this big announcement, we have master planning community events, please make sure you're spreading that within your group. So we've created a Google Doc of a list of community groups and the representative, as well as drafted an email that we can send out later this month that kind of invites more people to kind of officially participate in that. So if there are more folks that that you all recommend, please let us know who else we should be including on that.
Great, thank you for that. Are there any other, are you, Emily, you're muted.
Chatting while I'm muted. Does that list, I assume, include, I've looked at it before, but I've already forgotten. It includes probably everybody that already has a relationship, like, the waivers that we're talking about in the fee schedule, the Lions Club, all of those are probably wrap those over.
A lot of them are there, but would appreciate any double checking. I'm pretty sure I forgot someone very important as these things go.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other individual commissioner updates that anybody wants to share?
I just really quickly, I know we're running up against the clock, but I have been working with our friends of the basketball court to work with an organization called Project Blackboard. Todd Cusimano actually brought it up. It was in our original plan when we resurfaced the hoops court to do like a really cool piece of art or a painting on the center court. So we are working with a local Marin artist, and it's just, we're kind of still in a design phase, but we've been having some meetings. So I'll keep you guys in the loop. We don't have a final design yet, but it will be a pretty, as always, complicated process with DPW, and these things always take quite a while. So I don't anticipate it happening immediately, but it's in the works.
Fun. Great. Okay, anything that anybody wants to make sure we address on a future agenda? For next month, we would normally look at completing the fee resolution discussion. And I expect our subcommittees will obviously have updates. And I would just offer that we may want to include on the agenda a more detailed review of some of the learnings from the master plan, so we can revisit that.
That sounds good.
Okay, Aline, you're on deck for October town council meetings. Mark your calendar, or
That's right.
watch them after
Got it on the
fact.
calendar. Thank you.
Okay, great. And if there's nothing else, one last chance, we'll close the meeting. Thanks everybody so much for the extended time tonight. Really appreciate it. And we'll look forward to seeing you again in a month or so. Oh,
Actually, there was a delayed raised hand from an attendee.
okay.
If you don't,
Okay.
pausing for 30 seconds to take that public comment. Thank you. Just a minute, please. Hello, Patty.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I just wanted to make sure that all of you guys know that the Lions Club and Age Friendly is going to be offering the opportunity for free visits to seniors' homes that live in Corte Madera to get their tasks, light bulbs changed, mattress rotated, screens removed, all those little kinds of things, and make sure they call Age Friendly Corte Madera, and they will be coming by their house on October 9th.
That's great.
That is great.
Great, thank you.
Go Lions. Thanks.
All right. With that, we will officially close, and I will say I'll see you all next month. Thank you.
Well,
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.